There is a very sad development in our country today. We are all aware that our economy is in a mess. And part of the reason we are in this mess is because Dr. Addison of the Bank of Ghana has mismanaged the Bank of Ghana. As we speak today, the Bank of Ghana, under the leadership of Dr. Addison, is always quick to revoke the licenses of financial institutions that are not compliant with the Bank of Ghana Act. But the Bank of Ghana itself is not compliant with its own act. And as a compliance institution, that raised very serious red flags for our country. This is a government, the Bank of Ghana, that pumped and printed a lot of money to fund government activity last year and the year before, leading to very high levels of inflation, high levels of interest rates, and an unprecedented depreciation of the cedi.
He stated that they have been waiting to receive the gazetting and publication of BoG's financial statement, which by law should have been published by the end of April. Surprisingly, he disclosed that all banks have compiled with the filings of their returns, which includes the long-form report, yet BoG has not complied.
We have been waiting to receive the gazetting and the publication of the Bank of Ghana's own financial statements, which by law should have been published by the end of April of the year. We are now half a year through the year, and all the banks have complied with the filing of their returns to the Bank of Ghana. Those reports include what we call the long-form reports, which are very detailed, audited reports of the banks, breaking down every single item on the balance sheet of the banks in order that we can see the bank for who it is. But Bank of Ghana is not able to comply with its own law to do the very things that the other banks are doing. The bank has not filed and published its financial statement.
However, he explained that according to law, BoG is required to every 15 days gazette and publish its assets and liability. Then, at the end of the month, they further filed again its assets and liability. But this has not been done.
Every 15 days, the Bank of Ghana is supposed to gazette its assets and liabilities. And at the end of the month, they are supposed to further file its assets and liabilities. It's been almost 6 months now. The Bank of Ghana is in clear violations of these provisions.
Cautioned Dr. Ernest Addison to remember that he has dragged people to court over violation of the Act. Hence, the same level of accountability will be lavished against him.
I want to serve warning to the governor of the central bank, Dr. Addison, that he should remember that he had dragged people to the court over the violations of the Bank of Ghana Act. As a matter of fact, one of them just died whilst in court. And that he should know that the same level of accountability will be extended to him. But he has a decision to make whether to cut his losses and comply with the law or to continue with these violations of the Bank of Ghana Act. And that the long arm of the law is waiting for him. And he should remember that criminality has no expiry date.
Making demands, he asked the board of directors and auditors of BoG to pay particular scrutiny to the loan group of BoG.
I want to ask the board of directors and the auditors of the Bank of Ghana to pay particular scrutiny to the loan book of the Bank of Ghana. And that only unnecessary impairment of the bank's assets emanating from careless lending and printing of money to government will be investigated, and these audits will be reviewed in terms of the applicable standards that are required to audit those books. And if we find in future that the auditors and the Bank of Ghana are complicit and the board are complicit in concealing the true state of affairs at the Bank of Ghana, we will take steps to remedy the situation. And that remedy would include those auditors being brought to book. That would include us reporting them to the regulatory bodies that govern the auditors in Ghana. And that we will take steps to ensure that the board members properly account for their stewardship at the Bank of Ghana.
Fast forward, having called on the governor severally to appear before the committee, Mr. Adongo served a notice that tomorrow, Thursday, July 13, or latest by Friday, July 14, 2023, he will get his lawyers to write an official request to BoG demanding him to comply.
I would, in future, tomorrow or by latest Friday, get my lawyers to write an official request to the Bank of Ghana to comply with this law. You would have noticed that over the last 2-3 years, the Bank of Ghana has been running away from the Finance Committee of Parliament. We have been inviting him to appear before us and speak to his report. Initially, I had to write letters to him and get my lawyers to warn him before he started filing his report. Having filed the reports, he is not willing to appear before us.
Additionally, he served a notice that they will engage the Right Honourable Speaker to subpoena Dr. Ernest Addison.
We will engage the Speaker to subpoena the Governor to appear before us, and that there is no hiding place for him. He cannot be recklessly managing our monetary and financial institutions, collapse our banks and financial institutions, render our livelihoods useless with inflation, interest rate, and depreciation, and do not want to account for those matters.